Hi, my name is Dan Grech. I'm the founder and CEO of BizHack Academy. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about why you should listen to my episode of the Business Growth Architect Show. So my entrepreneurial journey was kicked off in the most traumatic way imaginable, which is I was publicly fired. It was published in the trade press. I was bereft. I lost all my friends. I lost my profession. I lost my career. And in that moment, desperation and sadness, I found the seed for the next chapter of my life and the enduring love of my life, which is building a business and helping others build theirs. So I hope you come and listen to the podcast and you'll learn a thing or two. Getting fired, I've come to learn, is one of the most common human experiences that we all share, and how I was able to lift myself up and build something better.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both. A clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic. Welcome back. Beate Gillette here, the Business Growth Architect, and I'm talking today to Dan from the BizHack Academy. And Dan is going to shed some light today on something that many, many people have experienced when they went from corporate to the entrepreneurial journey, which is they were either laid off or, in this case, fired. Dan, I am excited to have you on the show. Let's do this.
Let's do it, B.
So for somebody who does not know who you are, tell us first who you are and what you solve for your client, and then we dive into this interesting story of yours.
Sure. So I run BizHack Academy. We are a training academy for mid-career professionals who need to learn a critical new skill, in our case, AI-powered marketing. And in many ways, the business has its origins in my getting fired, because I wished, when I was making my mid-career transition, that a BizHack Academy had been there to help me. And it wasn't. And in many ways, it was solving for that problem, that need for mid-career professionals to keep up with the latest technology, that led me to building BizHack Academy.
I love that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, I want to address, the story. So a lot of people are told that get a good job, that there's security, that it fulfills some sort of dream, that if you do the right thing, you do what's expected of you, you get good vacation, you get the 401k, and there's some sort of safety and security in this. And then you got fired. Tell us what happened.
Absolutely. So I had a kind of gold-plated journalism career. I started as a journalist in my junior year in high school, when in my very first investigative story as a junior in high school, revealed a theft ring that went all the way up to the campus head of security, who ended up getting fired. And from that moment, I was just completely hooked. I wrote articles for professional publications all through college, got my first job as an intern at the Miami Herald, and ended up being part of a Pulitzer Prize, was a correspondent for NPR and PBS. And all of it was just this kind of rapid ascent until one day I was called into my boss's office. I was the news director of the local NPR station and summarily fired. Now, there are two reasons that I was fired. Number one, and the honest one, is I was a complete know-it-all asshole and deserved it. Smarter than everybody, knew better than everybody, completely dysregulated at work. It took me a long time to figure that out, unpack that, understand that. But the other part is this is kind of an MO. And this goes directly to your broader question. This is just an MO, a modus operandi, a standard practice, the station where I worked, and in the media industry in general, and in corporate America writ large, which is summary firings, often for no reason, with no notice, and no human regard. More than a dozen people since me were fired similarly at that station by that same general manager. And while I had it coming, not all of them did. And it wreaks tremendous personal havoc when this happens, because in my case, the firing, because I was a publicly well-known person, I was an NPR personality, and I was the news director of the local station. It got covered in the media. I had 3 different articles, the 2 local papers, and then the trade publication for the industry writing articles about it. There was an investigative reporter who was assigned to understand if there was some kind of malfeasance, financial or otherwise, that led to my losing my job. I was kind of a jerk at work, but it was devastating in every possible way. And it made me aware of something, which is one of the riskiest things you can do, especially if you're someone like me, who's kind of got a million ideas a minute, is to work for someone. That's the riskiest thing you can do. Like, I am very capable. And I just was so bereft because I had spent all these years building this incredible news service for someone else. And one decision by one jerk manager without any notice or notification not only upended my career, but left me empty-handed. So it was brutalizing, and it made me realize, like, I didn't want to work for anyone again.
So there was a public humiliation on top of the actual act. So I want to break this down a little bit, because I think that what we're going to see is that there's a lot of people that are getting laid off, as I said. And I always find it interesting that this myth of the corporate career somehow is the answer to everything, which it is not. I think it's the most insecure and uncertain thing you can probably be in, because it gives all the power to everybody else. You know, I did not get fired, but I resigned as a journalist, and I was on the photo editing side at Elle magazine, and I resigned because I just could not stand the culture. And I thought that this constant trying to be something or someone to fit this image of what we were portraying to the outside world was very, very difficult. And very much like you, I had this epiphany, and my dad got fired, Dan. And he was a CEO of a dairy company. And then when I looked at it and I talked to him, I realized that I was on my way to become like my dad, kind of like cocky, self-assured. You know, I had all the answers. So this really resonates with me. And I wanted to leave before I did that, because I think that I was probably very much, like you said, a bit of an asshole. And now, when you have this realization, though, right? So let's say our listener lost their job, got fired, or let go in whatever format. The first thing that they want to do is to say, it's not me, it's them. How did you get from recognizing, yes, this manager is probably, when karma gets him, he probably deserves everything he gets, but that wasn't all there was. So how did you come to this self-awareness to reflect back on yourself and what you did?
So just to give you a sense of where my mindset was when I got fired, the first thing that I did is they always said, like, go brush off your resume. So the very first thing I did is I prepared my CV. Now, a CV is like a list of everything you've ever done. The half year leading up to my firing, which happened in early July, we had won 75 national awards, just my little local shop. So the first thing I did is I made a list of all of those awards. And then in my tenure, we'd won more than 300. So then I made the list of the 300. And then there was all the other stuff that we accomplished and did and published. And I put that all down. It ended up being almost 50 pages, single-spaced, of accomplishments. And I looked at that list and I was like, what the fuck happened? Like, I was the most successful news director in the history of this station. What the hell? So there was I did find out that there was a budget cut that's happened on July 1st. I was on vacation. And so July 8th was my first day back from work. And the budget cut from the federal government for this local station was the proximate reason. Like, why the timing of the firing? It was because of the budget cut. $500,000 cut out of the budget. I knew it was coming. I just never thought I would be the one they would let go, because I was essential, right? All government bureaucracies are relation-based institutions. They're not performance-based. I was used to working in newsrooms like the Miami Herald, the Washington Post, even Marketplace, the NPR show where I worked, that were performance-based. And because I was embedded in the Miami Herald's newsroom, our radio newsroom was in the Miami, I was living day to day in a performance-based newsroom. I had not figured out that I was working for a public school bureaucracy that is not, in other words, all these awards didn't matter. It just didn't matter. I was like counting the wrong thing. And then the second thing, you're going to love this story. It's such an embarrassing story. I would go to meet with my boss, and, in this public school building, and his office would be open and he'd be in the bathroom. And I would go and I would sit in his chair and I would put my feet up on his desk with my hands behind my head and wait for him to come into the room. And he hated it, and that's why I did it. But I didn't know how much he hated it until I got fired. So
you basically told him, I want your job. So the minute you're not looking, I'm going to be in your chair with my feet on your desk. And oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see how that's an immediate favorite. Crowd pleaser.
Crowd pleaser. So look, this is embarrassing, but I'm authentic. So anyway, all this was happening, but you asked a very specific question, which is how did I figure this out? So these little, I was racking my brain, I won all these awards, I had all these accolades, we're getting all this external recognition. What the hell happened? And I'm like, oh God, I probably shouldn't have put my foot on his desk. Then I thought about, oh my God, my boss was setting me up as the fall guy. I was actually being set up this whole time. This was not a split-second decision. He was actually setting me up. How do I know? He had me lead 2 efforts for the station. One was the writing of the strategic plan, and the second was the rebuilding of the website. And we were transitioning it from a brochure website to a news website. And the title of the strategic plan that I wrote for him was called News is Our Future. How does all the other departments who are not the future feel with the title News is Our Future and a website that used to give them equal real estate, and now they're stuck in some tab on the top? And I did not stop and think even for a second about how they were going to be receiving any of this information. But I know that my boss did. And he's like, let's let Dan, stupid guy.
Let's have the narcissist in residents just go and tell everybody how unimportant and minuscule they are and prove to everybody that he's not a good fit.
And more importantly, he was emphasizing in private meetings to me how minuscule and not important they were.
Oh, nice.
So he was shit-talking all of them. He led me down this primrose path, and then when it was inconvenient, he cut me off. And so shame on me.
You were outplayed.
Oh, I mean, dude, I was playing checkers and this dude plays chess.
Yes.
This guy is a chess player, but I also learned an important lesson, which is that I really didn't treat people the right way, hence the asshole comment. Now, I had figured this all out because I'm self-aware enough to know that I contributed to my firing. I just didn't understand how. And so, like an investigative journalist that I'm trained to be, I just went into a deep investigative mode, which also looks very introspective. And I just started asking everyone I knew, why did this happen? And I just got the pieces of the puzzle and I started putting them together. And it all came together for me after I got my next job. They did an assessment of me, like one of those personality assessments.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the personality assessment was called Communication Styles. And there was this piece of it, this score you get for a thing called Versatility. And versatility is your ability to show up differently based on the needs of the person you're talking to. Well, I'm a bull in a china shop. So I knew the second
what other communication styles?
Yeah. I knew immediately, with some people you want to be quiet and hang back and give them space to talk. With other people, you need to kind of set boundaries of how much, et cetera. So you need to show up differently. It was so obvious to me I wasn't going to. So I got that low versatility score and I saw written on a piece of paper a number, a numerical value that gave me insight into why I was let go and how I was a bad colleague.
I love that you say this because I think that a lot of people don't want to look at how they show up because they believe the perception of themselves is more important than how other people see them. But the reality of it is the perception of how other people perceive you supersedes what you think of yourself. And that realization to me is in work very, very difficult Because when, I had this example where I realized that I must be a complete jerk, is every time I would go around lunchtime to the bathroom after my company was acquired, and I would come back out of the bathroom, which takes 2 minutes, right? I come out of the bathroom and my whole team would have gone to lunch. And it happens every single day. And then they would say, we didn't know where you were, so we couldn't ask you. But it happened day after day and week after week. And at some point you go, this is really awkward. There must be something that I do that really ticks people off. So now having these difficult realizations, Dan, on how do we show up? I think a lot of it has to do with that other people see potential in you that they don't have, and they actively need to push you down. How do you take these hard realizations of who you really were and then turn this into a strategy and became successful with it?
Two reasons that you mentioned that I might be is people, I'm not good at hiding that I'm really smart and have a very fast mind. And
why should you?
I absolutely, that's not a part of versatility I aspire to. I love my fast mind. I've learned to recognize it's a two-sided coin and it gets me in trouble. I have put myself into an entrepreneurial space because when it all comes down to it, most of us start our businesses because we hate having a boss and because we want control over our schedule. And then you realize that you're just your own worst boss, paying yourself less for more time than anyone has ever asked you to work in your life. And that you think you have control over your schedule, but your business is more of a prison than it is a get out of jail free card. So yes, you might be able to go and have a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day or take a yoga class in the middle of the day, but you're not free in any stretch.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of things you said that are really powerful about this. The part about the self-awareness as a leader, what you explained is that the first part is to really look at yourself and see how other people perceive you, what's really happening around you, and then taking that as face value, because that is actually happening. If that's what's happening to you, that is your truth, like it or not. Then the second piece is, what are you going to do with this? So now you make the decision that you want a better outcome, you want to change. Were there any particular steps that you took? So you took the assessment. The assessment says, here's the truth about you. So we take that at face value. Was there anything that you did, that you added, that you worked on to other than the awareness, but the actual strategy on how did you become the better leader that you are today?
So this is a discipline. This is a process. This is a journey with no destination. And I think of it as the unpeeling of an onion. I started when I saw that assessment and saw that low versatility score. I was given an answer to the burning question, why was someone as successful as me fired? And I also made a promise to myself that I couldn't allow this to happen again. And it felt unavoidable because I had a 9-month-old child. I was the breadwinner for my family. I had never felt financial insecurity in my life. And I was like, how am I going to pay for this kid? It scared the shit out of me. And I never want to feel that fear again. Now, I'm an animal. I went and I made more money in the second half of that year than I made in the first half while working full time. I got it done. My wife, in the meantime, was named the CEO of her company and things were okay. And we'd never have financial insecurity again. But it was so searing and unpleasant. And I was so bereft. I mean, not only did I lose my profession, publicly humiliated, many of my friends, journalists are narcissists. And so a lot of my friends just didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore because I wasn't a journalist anymore. I just, many of my pillars crumbled. I mean, honestly, thank God for my family and my wife. That was really all I had left for a little while. And this fast mind of mine that's smart and can do things and is driven, and I'll get stuff done. I'm unstoppable. So I just knew that this could not continue. This was intolerable. There was no version of a future of my life. I hadn't come on into entrepreneurship yet. Believe it or not, I didn't even really know what business ownership was at that point. Here I am 10 years into this journey, and I just had the most massive realization about who I am and how I am. And I love it, and I enjoy that. And I enjoy that more than making money. Like, I enjoy the process of building a business, and the way it has forced me as part of my job as the CEO and founder of this company to know myself and get out of my own way. And I genuinely feel 100%, I'm getting tingly even talking about 100% confidence that I will be able to succeed in the role of growing this company, because I've never said a single thing, my mind to a single thing in my life and not accomplished it.
I love
But
that.
I have now 10 years of self-awareness that I'm going to bring to the table that's going to allow me to build this business in an ethical, moral, sustainable way. And I'm so ready. You know, I'm in my late 40s. You know, the only thing that's going to stop me is my health. Like, my number one business imperative right now is make sure you stay healthy, Dan.
Yes, exactly. Because they say a healthy man has many wishes, an unhealthy man has only one. And, you know, and that's what we have to live by. So there's two final things I want to ask you. So number one, where are we going to send people if they want to find out more about you? And then my second question will be, after we talked about this, for somebody who's just been laid off, what are we going to tell them? But let's start first with where are we going to send them?
Well, can you add a third question?
Go ahead.
So B, I want to reflect on you at some point. You're an extraordinary soul, and I want to, you know, I do a lot of interviews, I meet a lot of people, and I want to have a chance to talk about you for a sec when the time is right. All right, so we are, like, my mission in life is to learn and then share what I learned with others. I feel like the greatest act of selfishness is to learn and hoard it. And you see it everywhere, especially in the field that I'm in, which is marketing.
Learn and hoard. I have never heard that.
Oh my God. But I just made it up, but you can use it.
It's good. It's good.
Oh yeah. You know, this phenomenon of dazzling with dashboards, like any of us who've ever attempted, who aren't marketing experts, to work with a marketing person, that feeling you get of being stupid because they're using words and explaining concepts that you don't understand. And they're using language intentionally intended to make it obfuscate and confusing. My company is dedicated to simplifying marketing and then teaching you how to use AI tools and how to market better, market faster. If you want to learn more about us, it's bizhack.com. You can also find us at BizHack Academy on social media. I definitely would direct you to a couple resources. Our YouTube channel is just amazing. It's at BizHack Academy on YouTube, and it has all these free resources that we give away with generosity. And then we also have guides for prompting and lead generation that are free and available on our website.
Thank you. And then my next question was, for somebody who's just been laid off or fired, where do they start?
Yeah, there was another journey that I went on that I didn't share with you that I think is what comes immediately to mind. No one ever takes this advice. But here's the journey that I went on, is I identified what are my core values. I identified what are my limiting beliefs. And then I created a hypothesis about what I would learn from my next job. And let me just unpack that a little bit. So core values are things that are true yesterday, today, and tomorrow. They're just who you are, your essential self. And you ideally want to be in a job or do work that honors your core values. Now, not every job can honor every core value, but you want values alignment, and you want to manage the downside risk. Like if they do some stuff that you don't totally love, you know, you want to be aware that that's it's not a perfect alignment, and here's where the misalignment happens. But you need to interrogate and interview every job opportunity to make sure that they're aligned with your values. And then finally, what am I going to learn from this next job? Not how much am I going to make, not how am I going to make me look better. It's what theory am I testing with this next job? My next theory was that I wanted to work at a startup, but as a partner, but not as the owner. And that worked much better. I loved it. But when the company was sold, the CEO got $5 million and I got 18,000. And so that didn't work for me either, because I just realized the only path to actually making money in an endeavor like this is if you have a real ownership stake in it. And so that was what led me finally to starting my own business, my next professional love. I clicked and found it. Now, am I good at running my own business? I'm good at some things. And I'm trying to make enough money so that I can afford to then cover up the weaknesses. So that process is what I would recommend to people. And then the last thing is like, my first job was like my breakup job. So, you don't have to feel like the next job has to be the job. Like sometimes you just need like time to be wounded, and just like, you need to collect a paycheck for a little while and just give yourself grace, give yourself time, and just have a theory about why you're doing it and what you're going to learn from it.
Is it like the rebound relationship? It's the rebound job?
My breakup job. Well, I think of my jobs as loves. I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but I was in love with journalism, but I was in love with like that fire of a first love, which is, some first loves are forever loves, but most of them are like they flame out. And even like, I was manifesting my firing because I knew journalism wasn't going to be forever. It's not an accident that I had just had a child when I got fired. And the reason why, it wasn't because I was distracted, it was almost because I was busy, is because journalism was unsustainable for me to be the father I wanted to be to my daughter. It wasn't a good fit.
That's so powerful. Well, thank you. I think that's really a good framework to use for our listeners to look at. If this just happened to me, how do you fall not in the abyss, but to have a better framework to catch yourself and say, what do I do? What do I do next? So thank you for that. All right. You wanted to add a third question. Talk about me. Bring it on.
So what do you think of me? Anyway, the reason I wanted to do this is because, I think one of my gifts is I see people pretty clearly. And this is both just by nature and also by years of training. And you're a magnificent interviewer. You're thoughtful. Your dedication to quality is impressive. We delayed this interview because I was moving and my studio wasn't the pristine place it is now, and I needed time to transition. And you're like, look, I want you in that space. I don't want you kind of half-assing it. I've done about 100 podcast interviews, and you stand out at the very top of the pile for two things. One is just the dedication to quality. It's inherent in everything you do. It's like the melody over the notes. Like, even people who aren't professionals like you and I are know that you're doing it, recognize it. It's just like there, and we appreciate it. And it's not financial. I know it's not. It's because of who you are as a human being and your dedication to the craft, and it's honoring your audience. And so you're saying thank you to me, you're saying thank you to them by being this way. And I know that this like perfectionism, this dedication to quality probably drives yourself crazy, your family crazy, your employers crazy, but it's also so essential to who you are that it's just sort of, I feel similarly about everything that I do. And I see in you like this fellow practitioner. And I do. And then the second part of it, which is related, is just the preparation. Like, we did a pre-interview. You had beautiful, thoughtful questions. Your follow-ups were on point. When you contributed, your own stories from your own life, it was additive, not narcissistic. It was beautifully executed, beautifully done. And I just want listeners, I hope this survives. And I want listeners to know that this is the best you're going to get. If you love this topic, you have the most incredible guide and host in B, and I'm very grateful, to be a part of this. And it's why I was as authentic and shared as openly as I did, because you earned that trust.
I appreciate that very much. That's exactly what I strive for. I think that very much like you, I had some very rough patches in the discovery journey of who I am. And people always say, be you, everybody else is taken, but what the heck does that even mean? And then when you really step into this lack of pretense and you show your vulnerabilities, that we don't have it all figured out, that we follow the principles of, if you show up, you give it 100%, not 50, not 75, but you're 100%, whatever that might be. And you trust that if it interests you, it'll interest someone else. And that if it's a good interview, somebody's going to listen to it, because there's no guarantees for anything. So I appreciate you for sharing that and saying it out loud, because, this is literally the first time anybody ever said that. I mean, I've heard things that I'm a good interviewer, and I'm a former journalist like you are. So that it's just normal to me to ask questions that are not, thank you for the question, and then move immediately on for something else. So it takes two to tango. So in return, I thank you very much as well. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm going to run out of time eventually. But these conversations are important because we never know what somebody's going to take away from this and say, hey, that was something I haven't heard before, or that really resonated deeply, and we just must follow that message.
Yeah. And, I've been thinking about this, and this is like the journey of your life. So if you're listening to this, I wrote beate, which is to be blessed, to be beatified, to be holy. And then she shortened it to BEA, but it's pronounced B. And so to me, the path to beatitude, the path to holiness, the path to realizing the sacredness we're all born with and endowed with at birth is to be.
Wonderful. Well, and is there a better place to end this interview but this? So, Dan, it's been unusual and interesting and very, very powerful. So thank you so much for being here. You've been an amazing guest.
Thank you.
And that's it for us for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening to or watching this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show. As always, if you heard one thing that resonated with you and you think somebody else could benefit, please share this episode with one other person. And until next time, and goodbye.
So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.